Well, what a season he's had. Brown goes inside. Oh, what a slam from the Panthers have a 3rd and 10. Here comes pressure. So the ball is out in the end zone. And it's Wheeler finds Vaughn from the logo.
Edelman in motion. Edelman takes the swing pass. Edelman's going to throw. He's knocking wide open. Amendola. Touchdown.
Welcome back, everyone. The regular season is finally over, and we are now in the playoffs, the most magical time of the year. We have Super Wildcard Weekend coming right up, and finishing out the regular season, I ended off with a 188 win record and 83 losses, tied with my brother. So I got myself out of the hole because I went 13-3 last week, and he went 11-5. So we ended up tied with our regular season picks, but we're still counting the playoff picks with our total record. So there is time for me to take second place and hopefully push him back into last place where he belongs.
Okay.
So
I am in first place. And so I have 196 wins and 75 losses.
all right, so starting off with our Saturday morning game, we have 4:30, the Chargers at the Texans. The Chargers went 11-6 this season, and the Texans are actually 10-7, but they do have the home field advantage because they won the division. The Chargers are 3-point favorites in this game. Head-to-head, the Chargers are 11th in points per game, and Houston is 19th, so there is a little bit of a gap there. Houston, I didn't realize, they're actually number 2 overall for interceptions this year, and the Chargers are 10th, so they are in the top 10. Now, as far as interceptions thrown, Justin Herbert is having a great season. He's only thrown 3 interceptions all year long, so we'll see if he actually throws any going up against a defense that does like to take the ball away through the air. On the other hand, C.J. Stroud is definitely having a sophomore slump. He threw 12 interceptions this season. And then if you want to look at the net points, which isn't always a huge factor because blowouts and shutouts can kind of skew the number, but the Chargers are plus 100 net points on the season, and Houston is actually right at 0. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah. Now, Houston, they do have 2 notable injuries. Of course, Stephon Diggs earlier in the season, and then Tank Dell. So their wide receiver core definitely concerns me. The Chargers have a really good defense, and just the way that they are playing this year with their new coach, they're definitely playing a different type of football, a better football. If we look at a little bit of history, Justin Herbert, he's 0-1 in the playoffs so far, but he's only played in the one playoff game against the Jaguars, which they should have won, and they actually blew a pretty good-sized lead. That was 2 years ago. And the last time the Chargers have won a playoff game was 2018 against the Ravens, and I believe that was when Lamar was a rookie, but I could be wrong. But 2018 was the last time, and that was with Phillip Rivers. And then, of course, the last time that the Texans won was last year with CJ as a rookie against the Browns, where they blew them out, and then they were actually blown out the following game against the Ravens in the divisional round. So, with all that being said, we can look at the home and away records. Chargers went 6-3 on the road this year, and they're playing on the road once again. The Texans went 5-3 at home, so not really a lot of telling information there. I'm going to go with the Chargers for this one. They're a healthier team. Their running backs will be playing, which is good for them. They need to have a little bit of a running game against this Texans team. They have good corners on the team, but I'm going with the Chargers. I think they're better coached. They're healthier. Justin Herbert's having a much better year than C.J. Stroud, and both teams have a good defense. Chargers have a great O-line as well, so I expect them to win this game. The only way I see the Texans winning is if they somehow do get some interceptions, which I don't expect, and then they're going to have Joe Mixon and Nico Collins just have like outstanding games and somehow keep the Chargers defense on their toes enough.
I'm going with the Chargers. The Texans don't scare anyone, I don't think, in these playoffs. They might be the weakest AFC team because just they're injured. And honestly, the Chargers, as much as it hurts, they have one of the best defenses. Like, not just stats, really, but they have a really good defense. But I'm just going to go with the Chargers. I think they honestly dominate the whole game.
I am also picking the Chargers. I think the Texans have been very disappointing this year. C.J. Stroud has definitely taken a step back from his rookie year. They kind of got him figured out. And I think that's, in the NFL, a head coach is a huge, huge thing. As you can see, the franchises that are not in the playoffs, that are getting the first few draft picks all have really bad coaches,
Or not at all.
or none at all now. So coaching is a big thing, and I definitely think the Chargers have the advantage in the coaching aspect of this game. So I expect the Chargers to win this one on the road.
I hope they do. I like Justin Herbert, and
I do too.
And I would like to see him get his first playoff win.
Yeah, I hope they don't.
8 p.m. Saturday night, the 10-7 Pittsburgh Steelers going on the road back into Baltimore against the 12-5 Ravens. The Ravens are 9.5-point favorites in this one. They do have a 157-point differential positive, and the Steelers have a 33-point positive differential. So there is a big gap there, and points per game, Steelers are 16th, so middle of the pack. Ravens are 3rd overall for points per game, which is great for them. And they're also the top rushing team in the league, as opposed to the Steelers, who are the 11th rushing team in the league. So they're very middle of the pack with a lot of their stats. The Steelers and Ravens played each other at the beginning of the season, and the Steelers came out on top. It was a low-scoring game, and the Steelers' defense played great. Second time around in Baltimore, just 2 weeks ago, the Ravens smoked the Steelers. They ran all over them. The Steelers' defense has been playing kind of without a lot of heart lately. They are on a 4-game losing streak, all against pretty good teams, and they kind of have a history of going 1-out in the playoffs. Unfortunately for them, since they're playing in Baltimore, and just the way that the Ravens have been trending and the way the Steelers have been trending the last portion of the season, I'm definitely picking the Ravens to win this one. Lamar is 2-4 in the playoffs, which is something to note, and he is 3-5 against the Steelers all time. Russell Wilson is 9-7 in the playoffs of all time, but most of that came with the Seahawks, which was actually his last playoff win was a few years ago on the Seahawks. They beat, I think it was the Eagles, and they ended up losing to the Rams the next game. So that's where we're at, and I just see the Ravens just playing better football. They're playing at home. Can't pick against them here, I don't think.
Nah, Pittsburgh's collapsed. Ravens defense good, offense unstoppable. Pittsburgh's just falling off a cliff. So
What?
give me Baltimore.
I am going to also pick the Ravens to win this game. Unfortunately, I really, really want to pick Pittsburgh because I'd like to see them win. But they have a great coach, and Pittsburgh hasn't given him much to work with, and he's done really well with the talent that he's had to get some in the playoffs. He's never had a losing season.
Well,
So I'd like to see him get rewarded with a couple playoff wins anyways. And maybe,
if they can,
Dallas can trade for him.
if there's some way that the Steelers can replicate what they did the first time they played the Ravens, that's really the one chance they have of winning. But the way Russell Wilson, the past few weeks, I watched him, and he's every game he'll do like 1 or 2 plays, and I'm like, what are you doing? Just a dumb mistake that a vet shouldn't be making. And I think the X factor for the Ravens, in addition to Lamar playing well, is Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is a huge X factor, and
if they use him.
if they use him, yeah. So as long as they use him correctly, the Ravens are going to be a tough team to beat.
Yes, they are.
All right, that brings us to the Denver Broncos,
Oh boy.
who are 10-7, going up on the road in Buffalo against the 13-4 Bills. Bills are 8.5-point favorites. Broncos have had a pretty good offense this year. They're 10th overall for points per game. Buffalo is second. No surprise there, the way Josh Allen has been. Denver is first overall for sacks, which is interesting. They are number 1 in the league for sacks. Now, if you look back at the Broncos' history, last time they won a playoff game was Super Bowl 50 with Peyton Manning, so it's been a while. Josh Allen, on the other hand, is 5-5 in the playoffs, and most of those 5 losses have been against Mahomes.
Yeah.
The last time he won a game was against the Steelers last year, and the last time he lost in the playoffs was against the Chiefs last year. Also, the last time these two teams have played was 2023, back when Russell Wilson was actually the quarterback, and the Broncos beat the Bills in that game.
Oh.
We did.
But it's hard to compare when you have a different quarterback for the
Yes.
Broncos now. Credit to Bo Nix. He's been playing great all year. Only 7 rookies have ever won a playoff game in NFL history. So that is something to take note. I don't typically pick rookies to win in the playoffs, but I do think the Broncos are one of the best 7 seeds we've seen in the playoffs in a while. There have been many years where you have a 7 seed, and you just know it's not going to be a competition. You know there's no way the 7 seed is going to win. Like when the Dolphins made it with Tua being out and they had their third string in and they had to go play in Buffalo, you just know it's a guaranteed loss for them. But the Broncos can put up a fight. They can hang with some good teams. They play competitive against really good teams. And if the Bills aren't careful, if they allow Josh Allen to get sacked a lot, if the Bills turn the ball over, the Broncos could take advantage of that and they can put up some points. So as long as the Bills can stop the passing game for the Broncos and just do what they've been doing the past season, I think the Bills win this game. I am picking the Bills to win, but I would not be shocked if this was a close, competitive game for the most part.
If it's a one-score game, we are going to lose it. We are, I believe, 1-6 in one-score games this season. Cannot close out games. But as much as I want to pick the Broncos, under like any other circumstance I'm picking them, I cannot afford to drop a game. So I'm going to pick the Bills, but I want to pick the Broncos really, really bad. I think we have more of a shot than people think we do. We have a pretty good 7 seed, but the Bills might be one of the best 2 seeds we've ever seen in a while. So, I don't know.
I am picking Buffalo because Josh Allen is having an MVP type year. So it's going to be very hard for pretty much any team, especially going into Buffalo to come out with a win.
Yeah.
You never know what the weather's going to be like. Josh Allen he's on a different level this year. Mm-hmm. And the Broncos are a good team. Don't get me wrong. I was never on board back when all these so-called experts were, this Broncos were the worst team in the NFL. They'd be lucky to have 5 wins. I don't think they have what it takes to beat Buffalo this year, because Buffalo's playing at a different level, and you don't know what's going to happen. Buffalo could go in and drop 45 points on Denver, or it could be a very close game. You don't know, because Denver's defense is good. We'll give them that. So, but I think Buffalo still wins this at home.
So now we have our 4:30 game for Sunday. We have the 11-6 Green Bay Packers going on the road against the 14-3 Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles are 4.5-point favorites.
That's it.
We have some interesting numbers here. There's a lot of similarities in the categories when I compare the two teams, a lot. So I won't list them all, but Packers are 8th for points per game. Eagles are 7th for points per game. Packers are 5th for rushing yards. Philly is 2nd overall for rushing. Saquon Barkley, of course, is a big part of that. Packers are 16th for passing yards. Eagles are 30th for passing yards. Packers' defense is number 3rd overall for interception takeaways. The Eagles are actually only 15th for interceptions, even though their defense, I think, is better. The last time these two played was week 1 of the season. It was week 1, and it was in Brazil on a very strange field, a very wet field, very slippery field. It was a very sloppy game. The Eagles turned the ball over quite a bit. The Packers turned the ball over. It was a very ugly game, and the Eagles ended up winning that one 34-29. So it's going to be interesting. Another thing I think is interesting, last year the Eagles lost in the wild card round to a team who, on paper, wasn't as good as them, the Buccaneers. And the Packers last year went on the road in the wild card round and smoked the Cowboys, who
had to bring that up, didn't you?
who were a top tier team as far as numbers go. So it's in the Eagles' DNA to lose a game they shouldn't lose in the playoffs, and it's in the Packers' DNA to win a game that they shouldn't win in the playoffs. But we thought they actually ended up winning. They almost beat the 49ers the following week. They played very well. But when it comes down to it, this year the Eagles have Saquon Barkley. They're playing at home in Philly, and Packers are banged up. They have Jair Alexander and Christian Watson now, who are both out for the season. I wouldn't be shocked if the Packers beat the Eagles, because I think they're much better coached. But just looking at it and comparing the two, I have to go with the Eagles to win this one. They've been a better team all year, and for them, their X factor is Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
And I think he helps win them the game.
I actually don't think the Packers have a chance. I think it's going to be an absolute blowout. I just think Philadelphia is hot. I mean, they started the season a little bit slow, kind of. Now they're just on fire.
After their bye week,
Saquon Barkley is playing one of the best rushing seasons in history, honestly. So, Philadelphia blowout.
I am also going to take the Eagles, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout. You got your two quarterbacks are banged up. One may not play. That could be a deciding factor if he doesn't play. I don't think it'll be a blowout. But I do think the Eagles will win this one.
Love is 1-1 in the playoffs. Hurts is 2-3 in the playoffs.
Right.
Of course, he had that Super Bowl loss as well. All right, next up we have our 8 p.m. game for Sunday the 12th. We have the 12-5 Washington Commanders going on the road into Tampa Bay. They are 10-7. They're playing at home. They're the 3-point favorites. These two teams also have a lot of similarities. Washington, they are 5th in points per game. Tampa's 4th. Tampa's passing attack is much better, though. They are 3rd in passing, and Washington is somewhere middle of the pack. These two teams also played each other week 1, and Tampa came out on top 37-20. Right, at the beginning of the season, they played each other. Tampa won 37-20. Baker Mayfield is 2-2 in the playoffs. His last win was against the Eagles last year, and his most recent loss was to the Lions in the following game. So, overall, the way I look at this, Washington has a better record on the season. Tampa, they have struggled with some teams they shouldn't have, like the Saints last week. It was way closer than it should have been. They were even trailing for a portion of the game, making me nervous, and I'm sure themselves too. But they're 3-point favorites, and I think a lot of that is because they have the experience. Mike Evans is a Super Bowl champion. Baker Mayfield has a lot more experience. Jaden Daniels is a rookie. I think if any team wins that is an underdog this week, I think it's Washington, just because they do have a lot of good players all throughout their team. That's why they're 12-5, and Baker does have those off nights sometimes, but he has the experience. For most of the season, he's played really, really well. Their defense is iffy sometimes, but I'm taking the experience. I'm taking Mike Evans to win this one at home as well.
This was probably the hardest game for me to pick. One of the hardest games. I'm gonna take Tampa. I do think they have more experience and just a better team. I mean, they took down the Eagles and the Lions this year, so they've got some good wins. They got some bad losses. Very hard to tell, but I'm gonna pick them to win. Equal out.
The last few weeks, Tampa's running game has been much better, too.
Bucky Irving.
Brian Robinson Jr. is still banged up, so.
So we really, in this playoff cycle, have a chance for 2 rookie quarterbacks to get a victory. I'm going to go against the grain here. I'm picking Washington to win. I don't know. I just don't trust Tampa.
Me either.
I don't know why. I guess I can't really put my finger on it. Baker Mayfield's played good all year, but there's something about him that I don't trust. I don't know. Washington, I think they're good enough to win this game, but they'll probably be the only one they win in the playoffs. But I think I'm going to go with Washington.
Okay.
All right, that brings us to our final wild card game. We have on Monday night, the 13th, the Minnesota Vikings going on the road against the LA Rams.
Maybe on the road to Arizona. They
Could
talk
be.
about relocating that game because
That's
of the
true,
wildfires.
because of the fires,
so.
yeah. The Vikings are 14-3 on the year. The Rams are 10-7. The Vikings are 9th in points per game. The Rams are 20th in points per game. The Vikings are 5th in sacks. The Rams are 22nd in sacks. And for interceptions, the Vikings defense, number 1 in the league for interceptions. Rams are 14th. So they're kind of middle towards end of the pack in a lot of these categories this year. They did have a period where they were definitely banged up. I think that part of it, at least offensively, they had quite a few games where they were without Cooper Kupp, Nakua, but they're a lot healthier than they were to begin the season. Stafford is 4-4 in the playoffs, and his most recent victory was in the Super Bowl, and his most recent loss was actually last year against the Lions in a very close game. These two teams did play each other, and this is what makes it interesting. These two teams played each other in October, Week 8, and the Rams won 30-20, and that one was also played in LA, I believe. So this is interesting. A lot of people are picking the Rams to win this one because you have an experienced quarterback. You have Stafford. Yep. He's been in the playoffs. He's won a Super Bowl. You have Sam Darnold on a team that's played. It's exceeded expectations this year, but there is a part of Sam Darnold that can be hard to trust. He doesn't have any playoff experience, that's for sure. But when it comes down to it, I'm actually going to pick the Vikings. They, as a team, have just been much better than the Rams this year, and this is a team game, and it is possible that Stafford may even outplay Sam Darnold, maybe not. I think Darnold will have a fine game, and I think the Vikings are just such a better team compared to the Rams that they will win. I think it could be a close game, but I think the Vikings are going to be too much for the Rams. They're just going to put up too many points. It's going to take too long for the Rams to get going, and I think the Vikings just outplay them defensively and offensively. And this is my lock of the week, by the way.
Okay. This is one of the games I could easily see getting wrong.
Vikings. Oh, by the way, sorry. One more thing.
Oh.
Vikings are 1.5 point favorites, so the spread is very low on this one.
The Rams, I'm going to pick Rams. I think this is a game I could very easily get wrong. I might regret. But I'm not saying Sam Darnold's bad. He's been having a great year. We saw how he played last week against the pressure of the Lions. The Rams are pretty low in the sack category, but their rookie, like Jared Verse, is 4th in quarterback pressures, and their other rookie is pretty high up there too. So they'll get to Sam Darnold. I don't know how he'll respond. I think the Rams win a very, very close game.
I am going to go with the Vikings, and I think the Vikings are a better team.
Yes.
I think the difference and this is where I could be wrong. It's going to come down to Sam Darnold. If he plays like he did all year, the Vikings win this game easily.
Mm-hmm.
If he Sam Darnold's himself, then the Rams will win. Wow. You don't get to be 14-3
The Rams
by accident.
Rams did hand them one of their losses.
They did, but this is the playoffs now. I'm picking the Vikings, and I'm going to pose a question to you guys, and to you guys, if you want to put in our comments what you think. What do the Vikings do with Sam Darnold? They got J.J. McCarthy, who's been injured all year. He's going to want a long-term contract and a lot of money. Do you bring him back? This is what I think the Vikings, if he has a good postseason,
Keep him.
I think they franchise tag him for another year. Then let McCarthy come back off his injury, which is going to take him a year to get back really into the swing of things, and then let Sam Darnold hit free agency.
Yeah.
But they got some interesting decisions to make, and I guess it's not a bad position to be in.
Before the season started, I gave my prediction of who would be in the Super Bowl.
Who was it?
However, neither team is in the playoffs.
Really, who'd you pick?
I picked the 49ers and the Bengals.
Okay.
And who were your two teams?
Chiefs and I had a
Chiefs and
rematch.
49ers?
I had a rematch.
And I had the Chiefs and Lions.
Yes.
Very possible.
So yours is still alive.
I'm still alive.
And very possible.
So here's what I think is going to happen. I think after all these games that I've picked, if they all come out correctly, I think the Lions beat the Vikings again. I think the Eagles beat the Buccaneers this time around. I think the Chiefs easily, well, I shouldn't say easily, but I think they beat the Chargers in KC.
One-score game, of course.
And I think the Bills beat the Ravens in Buffalo, but that one is probably going to be the closest one I would debate between. But since they have the home field advantage, I would take Buffalo in that one, even though the Ravens did beat them in the regular season, I believe. And then when you have your final four, I'm very confident with the Lions and Eagles final two, as long as Hurts is healthy. And I think the Lions win. I don't think there's any chance the Lions don't win the NFC this year. I think they're going to the Super Bowl. And then you have the Chiefs versus the Bills. I would love to see the Bills in the Super Bowl. The Bills did beat the Chiefs already this year, one time. Josh Allen is on another level. And I would pick the Chiefs to win that game because I just refuse to bet against Mahomes. But I will bet against him in the Super Bowl because I think if we have a Lions and Chiefs Super Bowl, which is what I'm predicting now, I think the Lions win. The only way you can beat the Chiefs, I think, in the Super Bowl is with a great coach, and the Lions have the best coach in the league, I think. They have a great team, although they do have a ton of injuries, which does scare me, but if Montgomery can come back, they might be able to do enough to beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs' defense is good, but
If they make the Super Bowl, Hutchinson's coming back.
I don't know how
Could
effective he'll
possibly,
be.
right.
I don't know how
Most
effective
likely.
he'll be, but
Yeah, you don't know how his stamina is.
They said he could come back in the championship game, honestly.
well, we'll see
We'll see.
what happens.
They got to
But
get there first.
Yeah.
Wow.
Three-peating is just hard. That's why no
is.
team's ever done that.
I can't pick against the Chiefs either, Jacob, but I would love to see the Bills-Lions.
Two teams who have never won a Super Bowl before.
Especially if the Bills beat us in the playoffs, I wouldn't want to see
I think that would be the most viewed Super Bowl ever.
Probably.
The most watched Super Bowl ever.
And really, you get that two great teams. That would be a great
Yeah.
matchup.
They played once this year, and it was a great game.
Yes,
the
it
Bills
was.
barely won that one, but they won.
They did win it, and
So-
Josh Allen, he had a bunch of touchdowns in that game.
5,
Yeah.
5, right? Couple throwing, couple running.
like 3 and 2.
So
So I'm guessing you're still keeping your prediction of the Chiefs and the Lions then.
I'm going to keep it and say this: I won't be really upset if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
If the Bills slide in there, or the
I would
Chiefs,
prefer.
I would. That's what I hope for. But it's hard to pick against Mahomes.
Yeah.
It just is.
Then the Bills can have Super Bowl hangover, and then the Patriots will win the division next year
Right.
with Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
I think I'll change mine.
What do you have for an updated prediction?
I'm gonna change both. I'm gonna take Bills Lions.
Bills Lions.
Lions? Yeah.
Who wins? Who wins your
Honestly,
imaginary
Lions.
Lions.
Okay. You know what? I want to change my pick because I picked the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I think the Lions make it to the Super Bowl. I think they will beat the Chiefs. I know that goes against everything I've said for the last 18 weeks.
Me
but
too.
I really think
I don't see
they're
that.
playing on a different level. Those players are focused. They're on a mission. They love their coach, and they're playing so hard for him. And I don't think anybody's going to get in their way. I really just don't think that'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
If they make the Super Bowl, they win.
I think so. The running game is so good.
So good.
And it takes pressure off Jared Goff. The
Yep.
only way the Lions lose in the playoffs, mark my words, the only way the Lions lose in the playoffs is the team is going to have to first stop the run, which is almost impossible to do against Gibbs and Montgomery. And then you're going to have to pressure Jared Goff the same way that the Patriots did in Super Bowl 53, where they scored 3 points offensively after being a great offensive team. And they just pass rushed him so much, he was just bewildered.
Yeah.
And that's the only way you can beat the Lions.
I
Almost
only
almost,
see
right?
one other
Almost.
way to beat them, and
Well,
that's
the way
if-
Josh Allen did it in the regular
Yeah.
season. All right, so let us know in the comments, who is your Super Bowl prediction? What do you think are about our picks this week? Let us know, and we'll see you next time for our divisional round picks.
Yep.